Corporate finance practice problem using Excel. Acquisition uneven returns problem number 2. Get ready, it's time to take our chance with corporate finance. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet, would like to follow along, note that we're in the practice tab as opposed to the example tab. The example tab in essence being an answer key. Information on the left-hand side, we're going to populate that into the blue area on the right-hand side. We're considering an acquisition type of situation. One company thinking of purchasing another company. The cost of the acquisition being the $3,450,000. The benefits or cash inflows that are expected are going to be broken out in years 1 through 5, 6 through 15, and 16 through 27, including cash benefits in years 1 through 5 of $410,000. We have other benefits which we're expecting, in other words, the acquired company to benefit us in terms of cash flow for years 1 through 5 of the $410,000, plus have benefits to our current operations that will increase cash flows of the $41,000. You could call them synergistic type of benefits. So total benefits would be these two: 6 through 15, $476,000, and other benefits of $52,000 and $55,000 and $73,000 for years 16 through 27. The cost of capital, the rate of return we're going to use, the discount rate is going to be the 14%. We're going to be conducting a net present value type of calculation similar to what we would see or expect in a capital budgeting type of situation. We'll do it a little bit more quickly here than we did in the capital budgeting section. If you want to go into that in more detail, take a look at the capital budgeting section. If you want to look at how to calculate present value calculations, multiple different ways, including with formulas and with tables, then we have a whole section on present value calculations. So there's a couple ways we can do this. Notice once again that we've got this information broken out into these chunks, which makes us think, well, then we can use our annuities. And we can. That's one method we can use. It might be a little bit faster to use annuities, although there's a little bit of a twist we got to put in there when we do that. Or we could just say, hey, I'm just going to pull this out all the way to, 20-some years out and just do a present value of one calculation, which is fairly easy to do in Excel. So we can do that fairly easily. If you're doing it by hand in a test question or something like that, then it would obviously be easier to do with the annuity type of calculations. And then when you're presenting this information or trying to analyze it, there's pros and cons between the two as well. It's kind of nice to see everything broken out year by year on the one hand. On the other hand, if you have more than 20 periods, it can get a little bit overwhelming, so it could be beneficial to see the grouped kind of situation as well. You might actually calculate this both ways so that you can present it in different ways as well, and think about how you'd present it, make your arguments and this and that if you were arguing one way or the other or trying to analyze your situation. So let's first start off with, we're just going to break this whole thing out to periods, 27 periods here, and just do a present value of 1, which is pretty easy once again with the tables. So I'm going to say 1 and 2, and I'm just going to copy that down or use the autofill to bring that down to 27 periods, putting our cursor on the fill handle, dragging it all the way down to 27 periods. Then we're going to go to the alignment group and center that. Then the amount that we're going to be pulling together for the first 5 years is going to be both the cash inflow and the other benefits, the synergistic benefits. So the total benefit of the acquisition then would be the sum of the two. So I'm going to do that this way. I'll say equals the SUM, and then I'm going to bring out these two. Now, last time I went through and I copied this down a little bit differently. This time, let's make these two cells absolute references because we're using something that's outside the table and I want to copy it down to 5 periods. So I'm going to say F4 here. Hold on a second. Do that again. Put my cursor here. I'm going to select F4 on the keyboard, put my cursor here, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the B's and 6's, and the C and the 6. You only need a mixed reference, but an absolute reference works well here, so I'm going to use it. Putting my cursor on it, then I'm going to drag the autofill handle down to period 6. We should get them the same number, pulling from the same data set. Let's try that again from 6 to 15, so this is going to be equal to the sum of these two items, the cash and the other benefits. I'm going to put my cursor in B7 and select F4 on the keyboard, making an absolute $ before the B and 7. Do the same in the C7, $ before the C and 7. I selected F4 on the keyboard. And then I'm going to copy that down to 15 periods. Copying that down to period number 15. And then we'll do the same thing here for number 16 equals the SUM, otherwise known as the sum. And then putting our cursor in the B8 and selecting F4 on the keyboard, absolutizing it, and putting our cursor between the C and 8 and F4, absolutizing it, $ before the letters and numbers, and enter. And then we'll go ahead and fill that one all the way down to 27. So there we have it. So that looks good. Let's sum this up then. Equals the SUM of this, summing that up. And we've got the 14,471. So that would be the total inflow versus the outflow of the 3 million. But this is going on for 27 years. So we got to do the present value. So I'm going to present value the whole thing using the 14%. We're going to do it one by one, but we're going to copy it down. So I'm going to calculate it a few times, and then we'll go back and use the autofill. So don't worry, I won't do this all the way down for 20 periods, but I'm going to do it for like 6 periods. So bear with me. And if you want to fast forward and not do it 6 times and use the autofill, then fast forward. So we're going to say negative present value, shift 9, rate is going to be that 14%. I'm not going to make it absolute reference as I would if I wanted to copy it down. I'm going to say, because I'll do that in a second later, comma, number of periods, I'm going to say 1. I'm not going to hard code the 1, but pick the 1 up over here so that when I do copy it down, I can copy that down. Note the format of the table is useful, helpful. It's something you want to know how to do. Comma, comma, and then the future value, because it's not an annuity, so we have 2 commas. Future value is that 451, and enter. Let's do it a few more times. Negative present value, shift 9, rate 14%, comma, number of periods is now 2, which I'm picking up from the table, which is nice, instead of hard coding or typing it in other words, comma, comma. Future value, the 451, let's do it again. Obviously, the number went down because it's the same amount, 2 years out instead of 1 year out. Negative, present value, shift 9, rate 14%, comma, number of periods 3, comma, comma. Future value, the 451, and enter. Let's do it again. Negative present value, shift 9, rate is going to be the 14%, comma, number of periods 4, comma, comma, future value, the 451, 2 more times. Let's do it 2 more times. Negative present value, shift 9, rate 14%, comma, number of periods 5, comma, comma, and 451. So you can see, of course, the amount is going down as we have the same amount that we're present valuing, and the periods going up, resulting in the number going down for the present value. Let's do one more with this different value, negative present value, rate 14%, comma, number of periods now 6, comma, comma, the 528, and enter. So now let's copy this down. So I'm actually going to delete this and do it the easy way this time, so that we don't have to do it 20 times or 27 times or whatever. So let's do it again. This is going to be negative present value, shift 9, rate. Now that rate is outside the table. I want to make it an absolute reference so I can copy it down. So I'm going to select F4 on the keyboard, $ before the B and 10. You only need a mixed reference, but an absolute reference works. So that's what we will use. Comma, number of periods is 1. Notice that one, I do want it to come down as I copy the cell down. So no absolute reference, comma, comma, future value, the 451. Once again, I want that one to come down as I copy it down. No absolute reference, therefore. Then we'll put our cursor back on this one. We might test it out by dragging it down with the autofill handle one time. Double clicking on this cell. Is it doing what we want? It is indeed doing what we want. So let's drag it all the way down and autofill handle it and drag it down to 27 periods. Then I'll typically double check this last one just to see if it's doing what we expect. Is it doing what we expect? It is. It is doing exactly what we expected. And then let's sum this up, equals the SUM, present value of the inflows, 27 periods then, is that 3,437,064. Let's underline this, font group and underline. So we can compare that to the outflow, which of course we don't need to present value because it's at period 0, so no problem there. So that's one way we could do this. We get this nice kind of year-by-year cash present value flow, but it's kind of long. The other way we might do this is to say, well, why don't I group these? These are nice and grouped in years 1 through 5 and 6 through 15. Why don't I just take the present value of the annuity for those periods? We can do that. Let's do that, but it's a little twist. There's a twist to it. There's a twist that you got to be aware of, because if you don't twist properly, then things don't happen right. It's like a dance move where you got a twist, funny twist happening in it. So we're going to sum these up equals the sum of these two, the 410 and the 41. And then we'll do our annuity for 5 periods. Negative present value, shift 9, rate is going to be that 14%, comma, the periods are now 5 because there's 5 years we're talking about. And it is now an annuity, comma, so we're not going to be doing the future value, but the annuity of the 451, assuming we're getting that for 5 years. And enter. So we present value that. We're at the 1,548,320. Now, this isn't where the twist is. We haven't gotten to the twist part yet, because if I add these up, same number, 1,548,320. So present value, nothing needed to be done that's special there. This one, there'll be a twist on this one, though. So years 6 through 15, which I believe is 10 years, right? That's 10 years. If I sum these up, equal the sum of those ones. So now I'm going to take the annuity for the 10 years, but it's starting in year 5. So I've got to take the annuity, but the annuity is starting in year 5. That's where the twist is, that we got to bring then the annuity amount that would now be a present value of 1 back 5 more years, back to period 0. So that's where the twist lies. So we're going to say this is going to be present value, shift 9, rate is going to be that 14% again, and comma, number of periods is now going to be 10 periods, because it's an annuity, that 10, 6 to 15, comma, payment is going to be that 528 we're expecting to get for 10 years, but starting 5 years out. Enter. So now that does not add up to the payments that started here down to here. Hold on a sec. Here down to, I think I got that right, 1,430,000. Does it match this? Because now we got to bring that back 5 years. So now we got this amount, which is kind of like the present value of 1 5 years out. So now we got to present value that back down to period 0. Here's the twist. Present value, shift 9, rate is at the 14%, comma, number of periods, we're going to say is 5, because this thing started like 5 years out, and then comma, because now we're at the present value of 1 again, and we're picking that amount and then bringing it back. Let's add it again. I think that number looks familiar. Does that number look familiar? We're going to be picking these up. So 6 through 15 is the 1,430,398. So yes, it is familiar, because that's the same number. That's the number it's supposed to be. Let's do it again. Equals the sum of 16 through 27. 16 through 27, which is like 12 years. We're looking 12 years, I believe. Negative present value, so we'll do the annuity, and but it started 15 years out now, so the annuity will bring us to where we would be at present value of 15 years in the future. So we're going to say we got 14%, comma, number of periods is going to be 12, because we got 16 to 27 is 12 periods, comma, payment is going to be the 578 for 12 years, and enter. So there we have it, starting at number 16 down, but it doesn't match out because we're still 15 years out that starts. So the twist, here's where the twist is. We got to bring that back. Present value, shift 9, rate at the 12%, comma, number of periods is going to be 15 to bring it on back to period 0, comma, because now we're not at an annuity but present value of 1. Bringing that amount back, we're at the 458,346. So let's try it again if I add these up. Adding these up again with the proper amount, the 458,346. That looks good. So that's going to give us our total here. And I'm just going to sum up the outside column equals the SUM. And there we have it. Let's underline it. Font group and underline that 3,437,64 should match this number, 3,437,64, which it does, unless I saw that wrong because I'm going too fast. But so now we're going to compare that to the outflow. So this is the present value of the inflows, comparing that to the outflow, which we don't need to do anything to because that happened at period 0. So nothing needs to happen there. Difference is going to be the inflow minus the outflow. And it's a negative number, So that means that we did not clear the 14%, so we may not pick it up there then if the 14% is the cost of capital that we need to clear, the hurdle rate, the discount rate, the cost of capital, the rate of return that we want. If it was 0, that would mean that we were picking up the 14% in it, and we might then do it if that's kind of like our hurdle rate. And if it was 0, make sure you remember that that doesn't mean that this 14 is the interest rate. This is including the rate of return. If you want more detail on that, take a look at the capital budgeting section where we do these present value calculations a whole bunch.